Hi there, my name is Brian Collins and I'm joined by Amanda from Spiderworking, and today we're here on Facebook Live to talk about social media for small businesses.
Hi.
So thanks for coming along today, Amanda, and for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us with some practical tips maybe for business people who want to get started on social media and maybe want to build their community online. So before we get into it, and maybe to give people some time to join today's Facebook Live session, I was wondering if you could give us a bit of background about how you got started with your business and maybe describe, I suppose, how you got started on social media as well.
Yeah, starting my own business was not where I thought I was going in life. I studied film and TV in college. I came over to Ireland. I worked in the film business for 10 years. I found myself climbing up the career ladder in the film business, but then I started looking at the top of that ladder and going, that's not where I want to be. And I also hate working for people. That's the other side. So one day I just decided I wanted to start a business, and I thought about it, and I was a bit of a hippie, so I started this corporate gift company offering eco-friendly feel-good gifts. It was called Feel Good Hampers. That was the idea of it. And straight away I was learning from scratch. I knew nothing about running a business, I knew nothing about marketing, and the digital world was really where I was looking. I suppose because I moved over to Ireland, obviously I'm not from Ireland, I'd been keeping in touch with the people I knew online almost from when email first came along, or when it was first accessible to us. So I had these online communities, so it just seemed a natural progression to use those in order to sell stuff. That was it, really. And then the recession came along, and part of me was relieved because I loved the marketing. I loved that bit. I hated packing hampers. I hated doing sales. I hated all the other bits and pieces of the business. The marketing, the digital marketing is what I really loved. So when the recession came along, corporates weren't buying gifts anymore. So I looked at what else I could do, and I thought I'd use the skills I'd learned to help others that were starting businesses. And that's where it started.
Yeah? Was that when you first started using Facebook?
No, I was using Facebook for the gift company because even though it was a corporate gift company, I sold to individuals as well. So I was the first person I knew to set up a Facebook page. And I was really lucky because in the first week of setting up that page, I sold a hamper from that page. So I suppose when you have good news like that, straight away you go, oh, this is something I have to do more. So it's probably down to that one person, Pauline was her name, who bought that hamper the first week that I'm doing this now.
Yeah. And was that when you decided that maybe Facebook is a great place to build a community?
Yeah, Facebook. I think very shortly afterwards I was using Twitter. Around the same time I set up a blog, so it was kind of all in at that moment.
And so your Facebook pages and presence has changed over the years?
It has, because talking about community, your Facebook page used to be a bit of a community. So people would come to your page, you'd post up discussions, people would interact. Still, even then, it wasn't exactly a community because people would talk to you rather than talking to each other. But now your Facebook page, I think in the time of mobile, people don't want to type stuff. They're very cautious about doing something that publicly. You know, we're all moving over to Messenger and WhatsApp and Snapchat now where we can do things privately. So for your community, for that real community spirit, you have to look at groups really, which is a whole different thing, and you have to target them in a specific way. So it's not have a group instead of a page, it's maybe have a group as well as a page, and that's where you build your community.
So are you recommending then that if I'm a small business person I should set up a group and ask my followers to join the group?
Yes.
Okay.
It is, you're going to need to balance time because we all know we don't have all the time in the world. So I spend a lot more time. I probably spend the time that I used to spend on the Facebook page in the group now interacting with those people. And they're the people, some of them might be watching now. If you are, hello, because I told them to tune in here. And that's really where you get to know people. And it's a two-way relationship there. It's not you going, buy my stuff. It's you going in there and getting to know them, finding out what people need, taking advice from them as well. They'll be the people that can tell you when you do something wrong or how you could do something better. And you don't really get that. You don't get that in any other sort of marketing that you do.
So, like, if I'm starting off on Facebook, like so I need to set up my personal page, or personal presence, which I probably already have because I use it for friends and family. Then I need to set up a page for my business, and then I need to set up a group. Those are the three steps.
Yes, but you're going to need to set up the page straight away. That's kind of as essential as having a website now, having a Facebook page. The community group can come a little bit later once you've started to build a bit of a following. Because otherwise you're just sitting there with all these entities trying to build them at once. So you need to have that page. You're going to need to start building up something going on there. But if you want the real conversations to happen, if you really want to get your customers and people who are going to talk about you involved in what you do, you're going to need the group.
And so, how many fans or followers should I have of my business page before I start inviting people to join the group?
It's not necessarily about the number that you've got. It's more about, are they interacting with you? So you need to spend a little bit of time building that up. You're probably going to need to spend a bit of money, because that means that you're not wasting time getting the wrong people onto your page. If you use Facebook ads, you can get exactly the right people. You can make sure everyone is, so if you're based in Ireland, you can make sure that you're just getting people that are in Ireland. If you're even more hyper-local than that and you want a really local audience, you can make sure you're getting those people. So in some ways it's a lot easier to build your page now than when I started, because when I started, no ads. It started with me harassing my friends. I don't think you can do that anymore.
So that kind of brings me up to my next question then. Like, one of the challenges, I suppose, many business people have with Facebook is over the years it's gone from a free to play platform to a platform where you have to pay for your customers or target audience to see your posts. It's
so frustrating. I have to say, it is really, really frustrating. And Reach took another. Well, it depends. It really depends on your page, because I'm business to business, so Facebook isn't necessarily, or a Facebook page anyway, isn't necessarily the right tool for me. But obviously, because I do social media and digital marketing, I need to. Not just so that people can see I do it, but it's a place that I can experiment. But for me, it's really hard, because the latest Facebook algorithm change brought in the fact that they're only really going to show your content to people if you get a lot of shares from your page. So I have clients that are business to consumer and they post amazing content and they're still getting phenomenal reach, phenomenal organic reach without even paying. And then of course they'd spend a bit of money on advertising. But for businesses like me, or businesses that aren't being creative or aren't producing good content and aren't getting a significant amount of shares, because I get 4 or 5 shares a week, that's not enough. My reach is still really low. So frustrating. Just be aware of that when you start your Facebook page. It's no longer an easy way to reach people, but it is still quite effective for the ads specifically. And things like Facebook Live, what we're doing now. I do a Facebook Live show every Friday at 9:30 a.m. where I share social media news, and that gets phenomenal reach. At least 50% of my audience are seeing that. And it's getting a lot of views, and it's getting a lot of interaction, because people come in and they ask questions, and that's my Facebook group community get involved in that as well. So that's another good thing for it. And that and video. Facebook likes video as well, but what it really likes is live video, and that's something they're doing for themselves. They're just getting marketers like me to embrace it so that they can push out their live product.
So if you've just joined us, my name is Brian Collins from the Sage content team, and you're on Facebook Live with Amanda Webb from Spider Working, and we're talking about community building. So I was going to say, if you have questions that you would like answered about social media, you can put them in the chat, in the comments section. And one of the great things about Facebook Live is all you need is your phone. So we're actually just doing this with an iPhone in the Sage offices, so you don't need fancy audio equipment. And I'm going to check right now to see if there are any questions.
That's great. And if there are any that we haven't answered as well, I'll check in when we finish, when I'm on the Lewis back into Dublin, and I'll throw in any answers if I didn't get to answer them live.
Yeah, and just to say, like, it's completely live, so if there's any mistakes, that's because it's Facebook Live. But one of the great things about social media is it gives, I think, business people like you, Amanda, a chance to maybe connect with an audience in an authentic way. And I suppose, like for me, what I specialise in is maybe content writing, where you gravitate more towards video. And I'm just wondering, like, how did you figure out that Facebook, and in particular Facebook Live, was a great way for you to connect with your target audience?
I suppose it's because of that, because I need to be helping other businesses. That's what I do. I help small businesses get better at what they're doing. So anytime there's something shiny and new, there's no point me telling you to go and do Snapchat, for example. I tried Snapchat, I love Snapchat, but it's very time consuming. Whereas something like Facebook Live is really simple to do. And yet, you're right, it doesn't have to be perfect. If something bad happens, that's, in fact, your audience love it when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
I was doing a Facebook Live from Smithfield Square because I try and do it every Friday wherever I happen to be. So I found this little corner where there weren't many people. I set it up, I have like a selfie stick. I put it on the end of a selfie stick, and there's me doing my Facebook Live. And it suddenly got windy, and I have a cup of coffee. That's part of my thing. And the coffee cup blew halfway across the square as I was doing it. And then a guy came out with an angle grinder. And started grinding.
Unscripted,
But that's all. I mean, that makes it more of a community, because that's what we're talking about, really. There's no point. We have what I call communities in waiting. And usually our Facebook page likers are our communities in waiting. They've said, yeah, okay, I'm going to like this page. But then unless you do something to activate them, they're just very passive. And like I said, doing something from a phone, pressing buttons on a phone is hard work. Whereas during your Facebook Live, you can encourage people to interact. They can see you, so they feel like they know you. And when you can respond to them directly as well, that really helps.
And I suppose, like, if I was getting started on Facebook Live, I suppose a common question people might have is like, what am I going to talk about in the video? So, do you have a list of topics that you approach each week, or what do you do?
Yeah, I do. So it really depends on your business. I'm kind of limited because I can't really go, oh, look at this brilliant thing that's happening right now, because most of the time I'm sitting in my office or I'm with a client and they're hardly wanting to go on Facebook Live. So I have a weekly show, so that's why I do it. And it's social media news. I pick out the most important social media news stories, think about how they're going to affect small businesses. I have a whiteboard and I draw kind of pictures of logos on. Because the thing about Facebook Live is we've got this, there's no movement. Whenever you're shooting video, whenever you're making video for anything else, you're always thinking about having lots of shots. So to make it a little bit more dynamic and stuff happening, I have this whiteboard that I hold up with the different topics we're going to talk about.
And do you spend much time in advance, like planning what you're going to draw or write about on the whiteboard, or finding those social media news stories to talk about?
It's kind of all part of my marketing anyway, so every day I read kind of like, instead of reading a newspaper, I read the social media news. That's what I do. So I read a mixture of news stories. So for this week, we're definitely going to talk about Facebook Marketplace, which they've just launched, which is like an eBay on Facebook. So that sort of stuff pops up in my newsfeed anyway. I'm reading that. So I just keep notes of the important news stories that I'm reading. And then tonight, I sit there with my whiteboard. I go through the stories and I draw up my little pictures. And always, Friday morning, they always announce something big. I have to try and squeeze it in my little drawing.
Yeah. And then, do you find you get a lot of questions from your followers about topics they'd like to cover, or how does it work? It
tends to be them joining in with comments.
Yeah.
So I tend to be quite interactive. So the way you can actually flip the phone the other way around, because that's what I have to do when I'm on my own. So I'm pretty much reading the comments as they come in. I always try and give people the opportunity to interact. So the whole thing is, it's my digital coffee break. That's what I call it. So it's because it's at 9:30. I was going to say 10:30. It's at 9:30 in the morning on a Friday. So I'll sit there with my coffee cup, the little bit of fluff like we did at the beginning. I will do that with I'm drinking coffee. I might talk about the mug that I've got, because I have a selection of mugs. I ask them what they're drinking, and that just warms people up. But then later on, I'll ask, well, what do you think of this thing that Snapchat's doing? Will you use it? Or I'll ask them which bit of news they want me to cover next. If you want me to cover Facebook, type in F. If you want me to cover Snapchat, type in S, and that just gets people interacting as well.
So on that note, if you have a question about Facebook Live or building a community with your target audience or with your customers on Facebook, you put it in the chat box and I'll be able to check it.
No questions.
No question so far, but we'll be here for a while longer. So if you do have a question, you're joined by Amanda Webb, who's an expert in using Facebook and to build a community, and also in using Facebook Live. So I suppose another topic we kind of touched on there to start is, Facebook's a great tool, Twitter's a great tool, Snapchat, Pinterest, LinkedIn. You know, there's dozens of different social media platforms, and as you said before, there's something new coming out every Friday that you cover in your news stories. So, you know, it can all feel a bit overwhelming. So, like, what would you say to maybe somebody who's, you know, in small business, he or she has a team of 2 or 3, but they don't necessarily have a lot of time to be using Facebook, and what's more, they're kind of wondering how will this contribute to my bottom line? What advice would you give to that person?
You are going to need to do social media in one way or another. You can't avoid it. That's maybe the sad fact. The good news is it's going to be cheaper than your traditional advertising, but yes, the time is a problem. And it's very easy to get carried away with time as well. So the first thing you need to do is identify the networks that you need to use. So Snapchat is great if you're targeting that audience of younger people, and actually older people are getting on board now. Is fantastic, but it's going to be massively time consuming because it's not like Facebook where you might post once a day. You have to post 10 or 12 times throughout the day. So I tend to tell people to stay away from that. Choose your networks for where your customers are. If you're business to business, for example, you might think, no, Facebook isn't right for me. It's a lot of effort and I'm not sure that's the way people are going to interact. You might look at LinkedIn. Definitely always look at Twitter. Whatever you're hearing about Twitter, Twitter is absolutely the best place to be for almost every business. In fact, I've never found a business that it doesn't suit because there's just this broad base of people. It's nowhere near as big as the other social networks, but a really broad base of people from every walk of life. Young people, old people, poor people, rich people, educated people, uneducated people, everyone is there. And the nice thing about Twitter is you can just go and talk to them. On Facebook, you have to go, right, you've got to like my page. And then if I'm lucky, you're going to see some of my content. Whereas Twitter, you can just go out there and chat. And I'd say the same for Instagram, because Instagram has a similar format. So if hearing all these worrying things about Twitter being bought by people at the moment, I don't think Twitter's going away. But if it ever does, have a look at Instagram.
So yeah, I suppose there's a couple of things there I'd like to ask you about. Firstly, we talked earlier on about setting up your Facebook business page, and then when it gets to a certain level, you invite your engaged followers to join your Facebook community, and that's how you build your community on Facebook. So how does community building work on Twitter?
Twitter, if you look at, I don't think you could talk about Twitter in Ireland without talking about Samantha Kelly. And Samantha Kelly her brand is Tweeting Goddess. And she started out on Twitter, similar to me, she had a different business to start with. She started out on Twitter and she set up this thing called, I almost forgot the name of it. A hashtag chat on Twitter called Irish Biz Party. Now, it's not one I participate in much. Because
I think it's every Wednesday evening, isn't it?
I was going to say, that's why I don't really know it. But, I mean, that's an example of someone who's managed to build an incredible community. Now, not everyone can be Samantha, because Samantha is just very good at Twitter. So she's built a massive community around that hashtag, and now she's moved on. She's got a Women's Inspire hashtag, which is another day of the week. But she's taken that beyond Twitter. She's gathering those people somewhere else. So I use Twitter to promote my Facebook group. I use Twitter to try and get people on my mailing list. But the thing you're missing on Twitter that you get in a Facebook group is you are still pretty much, unless you've got a really successful hashtag like that, you're pretty much you talking to somebody. It's not you talking to somebody and other people joining in. When that happens, it's magic, but it doesn't happen very often.
So if I haven't used Twitter before, how do I get started? I've set up my account, but I'm not sure really what to tweet about, or what hashtags should I be using?
I would say don't use hashtags. I would say, that straight away, if you're just starting out and your tweets are full of hashtags, people go, oh, that's just somebody spamming me. It's really about talking to people. So you can search Twitter, and it's a fabulous search tool, even if you never tweet it. But you can search Twitter for people that are talking about specific topics. You can search Twitter for people that work for Sage. And you can follow them, and you can look at what they're talking about, and you can tweet to them. And that's really it. You just talk to people. You don't need to. Obviously, as you build up, you're going to start posting your own content there, but you should really be thinking of it from a conversational point of view, not for a this is what I do point of view to start with.
And have you used video on Twitter? And Twitter has a version of Facebook Live?
Yes. So I've used the regular video. I upload video there occasionally, which you can do 140 seconds of video, which I think is kind of smart.
Yeah, very Twitter.
Yeah, and I've used Periscope. I used Periscope when it first came out, and that's the moment I knew I was going to love live streaming, because it was more than me broadcasting, it was watching other people. When it first came out, I think the first few days of it coming out, I'd watch it and you'd tune into someone who was sitting on a bench next to the Thames, and you could just go, oh, pan left, and they pan left, so you could see exactly what they were seeing now. A bit freaky from a privacy point of view, because what if you happen to be walking up beside their fridges in Russia, things like that. So I loved that straight away, but it took me a while to get started for business, so I did a few live streams just to test it out. And the difference really is the audience that you get on Facebook are kind of joining in because they're interested in what you do. The audience that finds you on Periscope is just kind of surfing Periscope, and they're not always the right people. So it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
So more, I'd say, for your business consumer market than your business to business market, Periscope, which is the Twitter live streaming. It's called Periscope. But they're doing some interesting things beyond that. You know, they're doing all this live streaming of football matches and all sorts now. So I do think they, like Facebook, are going to be investing a lot in trying to get people to use it. So it's definitely one to watch.
And you mentioned Instagram. Have you used Instagram much for community building, or is that something you're looking at?
Instagram is, I've been using it since day one for myself, and I only started using it for business last year.
Yeah.
And I was actually really surprised how easy it is to use for business.
Yeah.
So it is a case of, again, it's really easy to get carried away in the numbers game. So there's a lot of people you'll find, they follow you, and when you look at their profiles, they're not really, my industry's the worst for it, because I get a lot of people following me that are, you know, marketing gurus and people from all over the world that just happen to share social media. And if you end up following all those accounts back, you're not getting any value in your stream, and you're not getting any value to anyone, because you're not able to see the content you want to see. So be very specific about who you want to follow, who you'll follow back on Instagram. And then once again, it's not about your photos, although your photos are important. But if you never posted a photo, it's about interacting with other people. That's what it's about. So the same as Twitter, you can go and you can search Instagram for Irish business, and you'll find Irish businesses using Instagram. So straight away, there's people to connect with. Or you can go and search Instagram for dogs, if dogs is your thing. You know, that's it. And you will find people to talk to. So it's lovely from that point of view. And one thing I think it has over Twitter, although Twitter do geolocating, is there's a lot more you can check in where you are. So when we finish this, I'll be checking in at Sage. So people can see that's where I was, and then you can see who else has checked in at Sage, and then you can start connecting with people that way too.
And have you used LinkedIn for community building?
LinkedIn has, again, marketers spoil everything. LinkedIn has LinkedIn groups, and I'm a member of lots of LinkedIn groups, and I have a LinkedIn group, but the problem I have with the LinkedIn groups I'm in is there's an awful lot of people who blog, like me, who they end up being these places where people share their blog posts and they don't interact. But I know, because I work with a lot of people on LinkedIn, there are really good groups out there. So if you're outside the marketing world, there are groups, probably industry-specific groups for you, that you can join and get into really good conversations. You can meet people and you can interact, and that's a real community there. If you are posting on LinkedIn, and it's a fantastic business network, you really should be, if that's what you're looking at. Think about posting things that will get interactions. So you should be asking questions. You should be asking people's opinions on things, scoping people out about specific topics, because that's when the community starts, when you spark a conversation and a group of people get involved.
Great. So if you have a question for Amanda, I would say if you put it in the comments section at the below the video, and we will answer it. So, and something else I was interested in is another form of community building, or maybe an older form of community building, is email marketing, or even having people on your email list. So do you ask people on your Facebook group to join your email list?
Not exactly directly. So I do, building my email list is building any email list for anything you're doing on digital is really important, because the problem is the algorithms. You've got the algorithm on Facebook, which is what's holding back your organic reach, which is what's stopping you reach the people that you want to. So you could use Facebook ads. I would use Facebook ads. They've got a great product called a lead gen ad. So if you are looking to set one up, go into the ads interface and see that. And so you need to give something in return, really. You need to give value. You can say, so sign up for my Social Snacks newsletter, which you'll find at spiderworking.com/social snacks.
Yeah,
and you'll get a great newsletter every month, and you'll get a great update once a week from me as well. And that will get you some. That will get I probably get about 4 or 5 people a week signing up that way. But what's better is to have a lead incentive, something that looks really, really valuable to your target market. So an ebook is a typical example, or maybe you want to do a mini course, or maybe you've got a cheat sheet or a checklist, or just something that somebody goes, yeah, that would be a really handy thing to have.
Yeah.
And basically they're paying for it with their email address.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way to build your audience, because if you get that lead incentive spot on, the right thing for your subscribers, that's going to boost the number of people that subscribe to your newsletter. But then the really important thing is you can't just let that list sit there.
Yeah. What do you send members of your community who are on your email list?
The first thing you should do, you need to use email software of some sort. So I use MailChimp, but there's loads of others out there, and depending on what level you're at and what size of mailing list you have, it will depend which one you want to use. The first thing is set up a welcome email. So as soon as somebody subscribes, they get something from you immediately, because there's been studies. I saw a study from HubSpot there that shows, I think it's something like 70% of the people who receive your first email open it.
Yeah.
So that's your welcome email.
It's the most important one.
And it's got to be good.
Yeah.
It's got to be good. So if you can construct your welcome email so it automatically goes to people when they sign up, that means you're guaranteed the first email they're going to get is going to be a good one, because that's the one you spent a lot of time on, right? Then you need to kind of set up a schedule. So I blog about twice a week. So I have a weekly email that goes out.
Yeah.
And in that you can see links to my blog posts, links to any videos or bits and pieces I've contributed during the week, and anything that I've picked up. You'll get a link to my Facebook Live news in case you missed that. And then monthly I have a newsletter which contains unique content, so it goes out first to my newsletter before anyone else sees it, which is almost a blog post full of social media tips. So this month's one is all about preparing for your Christmas marketing campaign, which I know I just said the Christmas word in October, but really you should be thinking about it in September. So I'm leaving it a little bit late. So that's what they're getting in October. So I will push that all the way through. I'll say, if you want to get my tips for running a more successful online marketing campaign for Christmas, make sure you've signed up to the newsletter. So that's what you get with mine. And then if I've got something to sell, so if there's a course I'm running, or if there's something specific I want people to do, they might get another email during the month as well.
Okay, great. That's great advice. And I suppose when people are on your email list, do you find that they interact with you differently to the way people would interact with you on Facebook? Or would your Facebook audience interact differently to your Twitter audience?
I suppose with email marketing, it is very personal. It isn't, again, it's that, how do you define that word community? It's not really a community, it's one-to-one communication, which is good. It's really good. So there will be people that will reply to my email newsletters, which is fabulous. I love it when they do that. In fact, my welcome email is designed, it asks them to introduce themselves to me in email. So I love it when they do that. I love it because I know that means they're a little bit more invested in what I'm doing, and I'm going to get to know these people. So that's kind of cool. Whereas on Twitter and Facebook, it's very public facing. So you are, and LinkedIn as well, and Instagram, and actually everywhere. It's really, really public facing. So your community are going to be a little bit more guarded, and you're going to be a little bit more guarded as well. So you're not going to give away your top secret, whereas you might give it away to somebody by email. That's kind of.
Yeah, that's a good point then. So how do you decide what to share with your community on Facebook and what not to share?
I suppose it's just the language I use, or maybe you can be personal on Facebook. You can be personal in a Facebook group, but you're always talking to a mass audience, so there's a slightly different language that you're using. You can't be that personal. That's the nice thing about Facebook Live. To a certain extent, you can be, because I'll see Sinead, who tunes in every week to my Facebook Live. So I can go, you remember last week we were talking about, which you can only really do on a really close platform. Yeah. Whereas I suppose when you're talking to a mass of people, you have to just modify your language slightly, still make them feel special. It's kind of, I suppose it just comes with practice, but without it being too personal. In email, when if somebody replies to you and you're replying back to them, that's when you get really into, you're replying to a specific query with a specific person privately. It's just a slightly different language you use. Almost like if you were talking loudly in a pub compared to if you're chatting to a friend in your house.
Yeah. And I suppose, like, to go back to the idea of community building and then creating content for your community, do you find that you kind of cover the same topics frequently, or do you find, like, you cover topics that are in the news, you try and find something new each week?
For the Facebook Live's always something new. But as soon as you said small business and time this morning, that's a topic that I cover over and over and over and over again. Each time because that's something, so I'm a small business owner, I struggle with that, or I see people with new challenges. So it's not exactly sharing exactly the same thing. There's a new take on it. There's something else you may have found. So I published a podcast this morning, which is the second time I've done how to make time to blog.
Yeah.
But this is completely different to the other one. This is a new system that we're trying out. You know, it's all.
So it sounds like you have like a couple of themes that you regularly address, but the actual subject each week will be different.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Snapchat and Instagram, if you're not aware, Instagram have basically made a copy of Snapchat on the app, and now WhatsApp have done it as well. So this has been an ongoing theme for the last couple of months, I think, the Snapchat Facebook war. You know, so that topic has come up over and over again, but it wouldn't be, you know, there's always something new to talk about there.
And you mentioned you have a podcast, so could you talk a little bit about your experiences podcasting and like what benefits has it brought to your business, or have you just started? Or?
It's almost a year old now.
Okay.
So I put together a new strategy and plan for my business last year, which you really should do. I think we talk a lot about business planning. We talk about business planning, and we don't really do much about it very often. We know what we're supposed to do, but I like to be able to actually do it as well as tell other people to do it. So I put together a new strategy last year, and it was a lot more focused around me, which kind of sounds like narcissistic and big-headed, but I am a one-person business. I am the business. If you're buying into my business, you're buying into me. So I want you to know who I am, so that you are more likely to trust me, and so that you think, oh yeah, she can come and do a Facebook Live with me because she'll be all right in front of the camera. So I had two strategies. I've been making videos for my business since day one, pretty much, because of the film and TV background. You know, it's something I quite naturally did. So I had been, but I hadn't got a structure on my vlogging, so I started doing that. And for years I'd had it on the back burner that I wanted to podcast. So one day I just said, I have to just do it when I think of it, otherwise all the barriers get in the way. So I just went, right, I'm going to do it. I started podcasting, I haven't looked back. And it's just another different way to reach people. Some people prefer to listen. So I write blog posts that accompany the podcast. Some people want to read it, some people want to listen, some people want to watch. It's just different types of people learn in different ways. You've got to always be thinking about that.
And which do you find is like when I suppose one of the takeaways I'm getting here is that community building takes place in lots of different platforms. So we talked about time management there at the start of the Facebook Live session. So I'm just wondering, which is more time consuming, Facebook Live or podcasting?
Podcasting, because Facebook Live, I just do a little bit of planning, and then I'm here in front of the camera. The podcast, I have to write the podcast, I have to record the podcast, I have to edit the podcast, I have to write the blog post, I have to create the images. It's one of those things, because if you are a content creator, this will happen to you, that every few months you'll go, oh God, am I wasting my time with this? And you have to go back. That's why it's good to have a plan. So if you go back to your plan and your goals and what you wanted to get out of it, that will keep you going. But it is every 3 months I go, oh, this podcast is taking me so long. Should I be doing it? And you really, that is the advantage of having a plan. That's why I'm still doing it and I haven't given up.
So from the sound of things, then a Facebook Live session, if let's say half an hour for the Facebook Live session, maybe half an hour preparation, is that about right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, absolutely, researching what your community wants. So for podcasts, let's say a half an hour podcast, how long would all the other activities around the podcast take you?
I suppose that really depends on your topic, because I don't do many interviews. I do one interview a month.
Yeah.
A lot of podcasts are just interviews. But even then, you have to do your research. If you're interviewing someone, you have to go and research them. You have to go and look at their website, read their blog posts. You have to go and see what else they've done online. It's good if you can listen to other podcasts they've done, so it's not a surprise when you hear their voice.
Yeah.
You know, there's all these things you have to do. But that's probably less than I put into the amount of work I have to put into the ones that are just me talking, because that's like a little mini training session. I have to go and research my topic. I have to go and find bits and pieces. There's usually more than one image that I want to put in there. Once I've researched it, I have to really think about how I can put that across as me. So it's not just me reading from a bit of paper. I have to sound interesting. I have to incorporate storytelling into it, because that's going to help people remember what I said. So there's a lot more that goes into the podcast, a lot more.
So how do you measure success then from all the different community building activities that we've talked about? We've talked about Instagram, we've talked about Twitter, we've talked about Facebook Live, we just talked about podcasting. How do you measure what works, and how do you decide to stop doing something?
You need to have specific things that you measure. I have a measurement chart that I keep once a week. On a Tuesday morning, 6 a.m, every week, I fill in my measurement chart, and it's very easy to get carried away and look at every statistic for everything.
Yeah.
So think very much what you need to focus on to make your business goal happen. So do you need to build your email list? Because email's where the sale's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Everything else will build towards the sale, will make sure people trust you and know you. But if you can email them, that's the point where you sell stuff.
Yeah.
So is building your list your most important thing? If so, that's easy enough to measure. But you need to not just look at building the list, because it's like anything on social media. I can go onto Fiverr and buy a few thousand Twitter followers, or I can go and get people to sign up for my list. But if they're not opening my emails, that's pointless too. So you want to look at your open rates, you want to look at your click-through rates and the sales that you're making from that. So that was it. One of my goals is to increase repeat visitors to my website, because I have some blog posts that attract thousands of views a month. But those aren't people that always return.
Yeah.
So my goal is to build repeat visitors to my site. So I'm always keeping an eye on that statistic, both as the percentage of people that visit and the actual physical number of people that I have there. So that's one of my goals, to get there, because the more people visit, it's that whole thing of building the trust up until a sale again.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point for community building. So I suppose a lot of people who visit websites, or a website, not all of them will be ideal members for your community, or it wouldn't be your target audience. So it's normal for them to visit and then leave and not come back. Whereas other people, you do want them to become part of your community. So do you have like a persona for your community, or an ideal
More than
member?
one, yeah. I have a few different ones for different sorts of business owners. Obviously you have the ideal, you have your dream customer, which is who you're always aiming towards. But I have like different audiences. I have an Irish audience, that's where I'm based, so that's going to be my biggest audience. I also have a UK audience, because I do some work in the UK. I'm from the UK. And those two are quite accessible, because I can travel to all those places and do training and do consultation. And then I have my US audience, which is quite large.
Yeah.
But I'm selling them a different product. You know, I'm selling them me going and speaking maybe at an event. That's when I'm going to travel over there. But I'm also selling them maybe Skype consultations or online courses and things along those lines. They're a completely different audience for me.
Yeah.
So I can't have one persona that covers all three of those. I have to look at different personas for them. And even then, within the Irish audience, you've got somebody that's starting out on social media.
Yeah.
You've got someone with a really low budget. You've got a small business owner that's a little bit more established that just wants to up their game. So I need different personas for those. So I have 5 or 6.
Yeah. And do you talk to them differently in different ways in Facebook Live or on other parts of your community?
Facebook Live is mostly an Irish audience and some UK audience because of the time of day.
Yeah.
My US people, I used to do it in the afternoon, but the problem was Social Media Examiner did one at 4 p.m. and I did mine at 4 p.m. and obviously Social Media Examiner has it over me with their audience size. So The 9:30 really works well for the Irish audience, far better than the 4 p.m. one did. And so for Ireland and UK, that's great. It's never going to reach the Americans, really. I have a couple of people that tune in late, but it's not the same. So it's really thinking about which network is reaching which people. And very specifically with email as well, you would do that.
It's a good point then. So if you're doing a Facebook Live for your community, you need to consider where your audience and community are based, and then pick a time around that suits them in a way.
And a time where they're going to have time to sit down and watch half an hour. That's the thing. End of the week's good because we all start procrastinating at the end of the week.
Yeah, so Friday afternoon, yeah. So we're almost at the end of today's Facebook Live session about community building with Amanda from Spiderworking. If you find any questions that you would like answered, you can put them in the comments box. And of course the video or today's Facebook Live session will be made available then as a video on the Facebook page as well, so you can go back and rewatch it if you missed the start of the session. And if you do watch it and you enjoy it, I suppose I'd encourage you maybe to share the video with anyone that you think would benefit from learning more about community building.
And if there's anyone I know watching, give me a thumbs up so that I can check in with you later on. I don't know if you managed to do the little hack I showed you to get onto the UK page, but if you did.
Yeah, there was a few people there. They were saying they're watching TJ and Ola. So thanks very much for letting us know that you're watching the Facebook Live session. If anybody else is watching, you can leave a comment or ask a question before we finish. So I suppose we were talking there briefly about what to say yes to and what to say no to when it comes to community building online. So, I mean, Facebook Live is a new platform, so something that you maybe said yes to, I think it launched a couple of months ago. Are there any other new community building platforms or tools, maybe on a platform like Facebook Live, that you're particularly excited about?
I think we need to start looking at the private networks.
Yeah.
So I was saying more people are comfortable about having communications that aren't public.
Yeah.
So things like WhatsApp groups. I've never been a big WhatsApp user, but I am in a community of dentists, believe it or not. I'm not a dentist, I just work with dentists, but I mean, we have a WhatsApp group. Yeah. So there's a few, that's an interesting way to communicate with people. Now, WhatsApp isn't really designed as a sales tool yet, but we know Facebook owns it, so we know that they will be bringing in products that way, so that's an interesting one. Google have just launched Hello, which I am connected to nobody on, but they have a brilliant personal assistant that I'm really liking.
Yeah.
So I think that might be one to watch. You are going to have to keep an eye on Snapchat, but like I said, it is time consuming. If you've only got, 3 or 4 hours a week, that's never going to be enough for Snapchat. When I used it, I loved it, and people liked what I was doing, and I got lots of followers and views and whatever and interaction, but it was just taking me a couple of hours a day, which I just don't have. I don't think any business has.
Yeah.
But if you enjoy Snapchat already, that's the thing. If you're already spending time on Snapchat, there's no harm extending that out to your business then as well.
So it's finding a platform or tool that you're comfortable with, and that you also think ideal members of your community would use as well, or are already using.
And Instagram at the moment, this is going to be the heyday of Instagram for business, because Facebook own it. They've already introduced an algorithm, so we know what's coming. We know that organic reach is going to, we don't even know what our reach is at
I
the
think
moment.
it's already dropping,
Yeah, so, but it is, I love Instagram. I think it's a great network, so.
Yeah. I suppose what advice would you give to maybe a business person who wants to use Instagram? What should they put up?
Have a good mixture between, so my Instagram, I share tips, so I have like tip videos that go up twice a week, and I share inspirational quotes, but I think you also need to put in personal stuff.
Yeah.
So my Instagram story, which is like Snapchat, had me coming here today, has you featured on it.
Yeah.
So it's really, behind the scenes snippets are good, anything, so that people can see you and your staff. Faces work really well. Don't try not to dominate it just with selfies, though. I think people get very tired of that very quickly. It's good that people see you, but they don't need to see you in every photograph that you do. So a mixture of tips as well, tips, quotes, that sort of thing. Don't forget to tell people what you sell. put up pictures of products, put up how products work. You can put up little videos on there now, so I think you get up to a minute.
Yeah.
So if you've got a product, you can do a product demo in a minute. You know, that
So-
sort of thing works.
If I'm like selling a product like cupcakes, that's obviously going to lend itself to Instagram quite well because
Yes.
food will look very visually appealing on Instagram, especially with their nice filters. But what if I'm like a service business? Is Instagram for me, or should I consider using it?
Actually, I was really surprised about how well my account did on Instagram.
Yeah.
Now, I know I already have a community, so it is a little bit of a cheat. Obviously, there's people that are going to follow me. But, things like tips, whatever business you do and whichever network you're using, people do like tips because that shows that you know what you're talking about and it might show them something they didn't know.
Yeah.
So that always works. But, I mean, Sage have a fantastic Instagram account, and what you're doing is this Humans of Sage.
Yeah, Humans of Business.
Humans of Business.
Yeah, I'd say go on, search Instagram for Humans of Business, and you will come across some great content of business people showing what they do. That's on Instagram right now.
And it's user generated content,
user-generated,
so
works very well.
that's something that you can do. You can encourage people to, but this takes work to get them to do it.
So it's probably helpful to explain the difference between user generated content and content that the channel owner creates. So
if you put a post on Instagram, if you take a photo of you in your business now and put it on Instagram with the hashtag humans
of business. Yeah.
Humans of Business, that means that you'll see it. Sage will see it, and they'll look at the best ones, and the best ones they'll share out on their Instagram account, which means it's instead of talking about Sage, this is us, what we're doing today, you've got these lovely photos of the type of customers that you serve, which is great. And the users have used it, so they're delighted, and it starts building that community around that. I think it's a great idea. If I had time for it, I'd be stealing it.
So the key takeaway is if you have like an existing customer base, you could ask maybe your customers to help or to create some content, and then you could tag them on Facebook,
or if they're taking the photo anyway,
share their comments on Twitter or their photographs. Or you could comment on some of their social media posts. Actually, that's an interesting point. Is that something you do much? Do you go to your fans or connections and comment on what they share?
On Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, yes. On Facebook, not so much.
Yeah.
Because it's just there's more friction for me to do it. It's harder for me to do. Whereas I can sit there while I was on the Lewis earlier, look through LinkedIn and comment on people's posts on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Whereas on Facebook Business, it's harder to find them and do that.
And is there a particular tool you use to manage your presence on the various community platforms?
I use lots of tools. I use Agora Pulse for scheduling on Instagram. It's not real scheduling yet. It's just kind of a reminder to post, and scheduling on Twitter, and I don't really use it for Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Three of those. Agora Pulse is a paid tool, and I write a blog for them, so I obviously have an invested interest in them, but that means that I use the tool because I have to find out how it works to blog. I also use Hootsuite because Agora Pulse doesn't do Facebook groups.
Yeah.
So you can use Hootsuite to schedule, say, I have 3 weekly conversations that happen every week on that group, and it's all about encouraging people to share. So the nice thing about a group is you can do that. You would be encouraging people to promote themselves as well as talking about yourself. So on a Wednesday we have a blog post thread where people can post their latest blog post. On a Friday we have a comment thread where people can ask for comments on their posts. On a Monday we do an introduction post. So to make sure that happens every week, I can schedule that. Other stuff it goes in there at random, but those 3 kind of get scheduled in. I use CoSchedule on my blog to schedule my blog content going out.
It's quite a popular tool,
It's really great. But then you have to be really careful because you can't just have your automated content going out. You have to go in and, like Twitter in particular, I hate to think anyone looks at my Twitter stream, and sometimes they will look at my Twitter stream and just see a big long list of my content. So, I make an effort to try and intersperse other stuff I'm reading. Like I say, I read every morning, so there's content I'm reading and sharing every day. And then conversations. Don't just automate and let it go. You need to have the conversations on all those social networks for it to work.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I suppose it's important to know that the tools can help, but it's even more important to probably engage with your followers directly than maybe to use any tool. I suppose the other thing is, Do you manage your presence on Twitter and Facebook and so on at a set time? Like, I know you have your Facebook Live session at a set time, but when it comes to like scheduling your posts for the week, is there a particular part
Yes.
of the day you do that?
Monday I do all my kind of scheduled posts. Apart from Twitter, apart from the stuff that doesn't happen on Agora Pulse and that on Twitter, so the daily stuff I'm reading happens every morning on Twitter. So, but that's because that's when it's like having breakfast and reading a newspaper. Just my newspaper isn't about politics. My newspaper is about social media. So it's kind of a combined activity. It's something I have to do because social media changes so fast, and if people are going to hire me, I need to know. So that is quite easy for me to fit in. But I say every industry has that. You should be making your own newspaper of stuff that's interesting to your customers.
So I think that kind of brings us towards the end of today's Facebook Live session. So Amanda, where can people find you online?
Spiderworking.com is the name of my website. The Facebook group, I have a Facebook group for small business bloggers. So if you're thinking about blogging and you want advice and you want to meet my community of people, that would be at spiderworking.com/group. So that sounds like a web address, but that will bring you directly to the Facebook group, spiderworking.com/group. On Twitter, I'm Spiderworking. On Snapchat, which I don't use very much, I'm Spiderworking. On Instagram, I'm Spiderworking. You'll find me everywhere.
So it sounds like if you Google Spiderworking, you'll find me online. So I hope if you enjoyed today's session, please let us know in the comments, or you can share the video with maybe some other business people who will find it useful. And please do maybe take some time to connect with Amanda online if you haven't already done so. So thanks very much for watching.
Bye.